He walked into the room like he owned the floor, the chandelier, the conversations under it, and with one sentence he set $3.8 billion on fire. Yeah, that happened, and I was the woman in a black and white uniform standing at his elbow when the match was struck. I'm Amara Lewis, the waitress people thought was background, the pair of hands pouring wine while the real players talked, the person you only notice when a glass tips wrong. If you've ever been sized up and filed under less than you already know the temperature of the air I was breathing that night. It was early autumn on Fifth Avenue, outside the St. Regis. The city was all taxis and steam grates, and people pretending they weren't cold. Yet inside the ballroom everything whispered. Power-polished mahogany candlelight like melted gold. A jazz quartet soft enough to make even rude people speak politely. Center table Victor Reinhardt, 70 silver hair, and the kind of quiet that rearranges a room without raising a finger across from him. Julian. Hart, 36, CEO of Hardcore Technologies. Suit, sharp smile, sharper voice calibrated for headlines, and around them a ring of executives nodding on cue. I'd chosen to work this dinner for reasons that had nothing to do with tips. I wanted to study power up close, how it walks, how it talks, how it treats whoever it thinks can't say no. And yeah, the extra shift money helped, because my little brother Isaiah's therapy doesn't pause for anyone's calendar. We have a sequence for pores, if you know. You know I went Victor first, then his assistant, then the quiet ones with real questions. Julian last, not to be petty, just because details reveal you, and he clocked it. A flicker at the edge of a practiced grin. He was already selling before the appetizers cooled integration. In 2 quarters double ROI in under 18 months, markets reward dominance. The kind of lines that make a room hum with borrowed confidence. And then my glass kissed the rim of his cuff, and a drop of Bordeaux fell where it shouldn't. Not a disaster, not even memorable unless you need a stage. I'm so sorry, sir, I said, napkin already out, blotting fast, ready to be invisible again. And then he chose a word I won't repeat here. Racist, ugly, flung at full volume like it belonged in the air, with the chandeliers, and the room did that thing rooms do when the mask slips. Forks hung in midair, music tripped, people remembered where their phones were. I didn't cry, not because I'm made of stone, because I learned a long time ago that tears in rooms like that turn into props for someone else's story. I folded the napkin, straightened my shoulders, said, I apologize once clean, and let the silence do what silence does. And across the table, Victor put his fork down with the softest click, like a gavel, like a countdown. Later, I came back with water because service never stops. And he reached out and caught my wrist, not hard enough to bruise, hard enough to tell me he enjoyed the line he was drawing, leaned in with that smile that says, the camera's not on you. When real business is happening, you don't interrupt. You stand still. You learn your place, he whispered. And something in me went very still. The kind of still that decides my voice stayed low, yes, sir. I understand completely. And then I pulled my wrist free like it was my choice, because it was. Around us, witnesses pretended not to be witnesses. A senator's wife went, statue still. Executives studied linen, like it held answers. The jazz sighed into silence, and Victor leaned toward his assistant and said 2 words like he was ordering coffee. It's time. Then he stood, and you could feel the whole room stand, even if they stayed seated. He didn't clear his throat or pound the table. He just looked at me, then at Julian. Before we continue, there's someone very important. I'd like you to meet properly, he said, and that word properly cut cleaner than any shout. I untied my apron, the knot I could undo in the dark, set the tray down, walked into the light beside him, and Victor said it the way you say, a fact that existed long before tonight. This is Amara Lewis, my daughter. Phones tilted higher. A fork clinked against china somewhere near the back. Julian tried a laugh that sounded like glass in a garbage disposal. "This is a misunderstanding," he said, looking for a tone that used to obey him, but the room had changed owners. Victor didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. She didn't choose this job because she needed the money. He said she chose it because she wanted to see how men in power treat people they think are beneath them. And then he sat down as if the case had been presented, and the jury was already texting the verdict. Heads bowed over glowing screens, headlines bloomed like bruises. Reinhardt pulls out of 3.8B. Deal after public incident. Tech CEO under fire for racial remark. And Julian's phone buzzed on the table once, twice, then non-stop PR legal board, the whole machine trying to outrun a sentence. I went home to Harlem through streets that didn't know about crystal or chandeliers. Our apartment smelled like laundry and something sweet. Because Isaiah had tried to bake again, he was at the window chair, angled to catch the last of the light. "Amara, you're on TV," he said, grinning like the sun picked him, and I laughed harder than I had in months. Yeah, that happened. We watched a clip cut for outrage. Then I made him grilled cheese because sometimes being normal is the richest thing on earth. Morning came fast, and I stood in front of the glass tower of Reinhardt Global with a thrift store blazer and a stomach full of butterflies. The lobby hummed, people looked up like they'd seen a headline grow legs. Victor met me on the executive floor and handed me a small nameplate that felt heavier than it looked. Director of Human Capital and Integrity. "This isn't a bandage," he said, "it's a beginning," and I believed him because his quiet never lies. We sent a live broadcast across time zones that afternoon. Offices from San Francisco to Singapore poured into one digital room. I didn't bring a speech. I brought the truth in my own voice. Yesterday, I got called something ugly. I said not because of a spill, but because someone believed their title made them more human than me. I said nothing. Then I'm saying something now. Power is loud. Leadership listens. People are not numbers. They are stories and families and futures. If we forget that, we make short-term money and long-term mistakes. I didn't take this seat, and I was trusted with it, and I plan to earn it, starting with dignity as the baseline, not extra credit. And the chat filled with raised hands and hearts and a flood of tiny claps, which was corny and also deeply human. And I let myself smile because I felt a company exhale. Meanwhile, hardcore fell through its own reflection. The stock bled red, the board suspended. Julian, his name turned into a cautionary tale in real time. And I don't celebrate anyone's collapse, but I won't lie. A certain justice clicked into place behind my ribs, like a spine straightening. He didn't lose the deal because a model missed. He lost it because a mask did. We made immediate changes that meant something. A real hotline answered by a person with power training that doesn't condescend, consequences written and enforced, and a simple rule for every Reinhardt event. We introduced the service team by name, and we looked them in the eye. And if that sounds small to you, you haven't lived under someone else's shrug. When the cameras moved on, life kept being life. I rode the bus to Isaiah's therapy, argued about pineapple on pizza, cheered at wheelchair basketball, like it was the finals. Slept 12 hours, like I was getting away with something. People asked if the reveal cheapened me, like I only mattered because of who my father is. Here's the part they don't see. I mattered when I worked 3 jobs, and still showed up when I learned to hear the insult hidden in a compliment, and keep my head anyway when I saved dollar bills in a jar labeled future. And meant it. The reveal didn't give me value. It exposed who was measuring wrong. As for Julian, do I believe one sentence should erase a career? I don't have a gavel, I have a story, consequences are real, and they should be. Redemption is possible, but it costs something. And if your first move after harm is to manage optics, you're not sorry, yet you're scared. So no. The most powerful person in that ballroom wasn't the one at the head of the table. Power talks and talks, leadership listens. And that night, leadership sounded like a fork set down, and a father saying my name in a room that needed to hear it. I'm telling you this so the next time you're handed one of those pop quizzes life gives for free, the cashier who gets your coffee wrong, the janitor in the elevator, the rep on the phone whose accent makes you impatient, you'll remember there's a cost to choosing arrogance. Sometimes it's measured in dollars, most times it's measured in who you become. I'll end with this, and I want to hear from you, because the comments are where the real conversation lives. If you'd been there when the room went silent, what would you have done? Would you have filmed, walked out, called it in the moment, sat there and frozen like a lot of people did? Do you think words should cost a man his job and a multi-billion-dollar deal, or is the real price the trust he burned in front of everyone? Have you seen a moment like this at your job, at a restaurant, in school? And how did it change you? Drop your story below, push back if you disagree. Tell me where you've seen dignity tested and what justice looked like when the lights weren't on.